The bald man from the insect race pointed a finger forward, and 6 semi-transparent wings abruptly sprang out of the clump of white putty-like substance, following which it began to fly toward the white light barrier. As it turned out, the mass of putty-like substance appeared to be a strange spirit insect. A series of corkscrew-shaped white ice crystals appeared in the space in its wake, indicating that it was giving off an almighty chill that seemed capable of freezing the very space itself. At the same time, its body also swelled up like a balloon, quickly expanding to countless times its original size, and in the instant that it came into contact with the white light barrier, it exploded silently into a cloud of white mist that encompassed the entire light barrier. A layer of white ice crystals instantly spread over the light barrier, causing the flow of white light over the light barrier to slow down significantly. At the same time, the 2 golden-robed women swept their sleeves through the air in silence, releasing a pair of golden clouds that were actually 2 swarms of countless tiny golden insects. These insects were only the size of ants, but they had wings on their backs, and their mouths were filled with blade-like sharp teeth. As soon as they landed upon the layer of white ice crystals, they immediately began sinking their teeth into the white light barrier, and before long, countless holes had been bitten into the light barrier. The white light barrier was still replenishing itself and mending those holes by absorbing the surrounding skeletons, but it was clearly doing so at a far slower rate than before. Right at this moment, the yellow-robed elderly man's golden flying sword came crashing down with tremendous power once again, and an earth-shattering boom rang out as the sword clashed with the light barrier. The latter was already severely ravaged, and several huge cracks instantly appeared on its surface, making it appear as if it could shatter at any moment. The 3 beast race golden immortals' expressions changed drastically upon seeing this, and all of them threw up a mouthful of blood in unison from the backlash. But they had no time to tend to their own internal injuries, as they hurriedly cast strings of incantation seals into the 3 bone treasures overhead. The 3 treasures instantly began to glow brightly, while the white light that was moving sluggishly over the surface of the light barrier down below also sped up a little. But the 3 golden immortals knew that they weren't going to be able to last much longer. Meanwhile, far away from the battlefield, the sand beast was still pursuing Han Li, with the former racing through the air as a yellow shadow, while Han Li was flashing through the sky as an arc of golden lightning. At this point, the sand beast had shrunk down to less than 1,000th of its original size, and it was far faster than before. Han Li had already summoned his thunderstorm wings and was unleashing his lightning movement technique with all his might. Yet he was still unable to shake off the sand beast. The main reason for this was because Nuo Yifan was by his side. With her essentially acting as dead weight, he was naturally bound to be slowed down significantly. Right as the gap between them was closed to only several dozen kilometers, a ball of yellow light suddenly descended out of the sky toward Han Li. The ball of light was none other than the sand beast's spirit domain, and it was giving off tremendous law power fluctuations. Han Li's expression changed slightly upon seeing this, and the thunderstorm wings on his back instantly released a burst of golden lightning that enveloped his entire body. A loud thunderclap rang out, and he and Nuo Yifan were only just barely able to evade the spirit domain. Reappearing several hundred kilometers away, Han Li didn't pause for even a single instant as he vanished into thin air amid another flash of golden lightning, then re-emerged in the sky above a forest. Finally, he was able to temporarily open up some distance between himself and the sand beast, and he hurriedly said to Nuo Yifan, "Get away from here, fellow Taoist Nuo. The sand beast's target is me, so it shouldn't go after you." Immediately thereafter, he sped away as an arc of golden lightning. "Look after yourself, Senior Li." At this moment, Nuo Yifan's face was still rather pale, but she remained calm and collected as she extended a grateful bow in Han Li's direction, then flew back toward the canyon as a streak of light. The sand beast arrived onto the scene in a flash, and Nuo Yifan's complexion paled even further as she sensed its approaching aura. The spiritual light around her instantly glowed even brighter as she accelerated in her escape. The sand beast turned to take a glance in Han Li's direction, but didn't immediately set off in pursuit. Instead, it turned to pursue Nuo Yifan instead. Nuo Yifan was naturally far slower than the sand beast, and the distance between them was quickly dwindling. Several hundred kilometers away, Han Li's expression changed drastically upon sensing this, and he clearly hadn't anticipated that the sand beast would be so intelligent. The reason why he had been unwilling to abandon Nuo Yifan earlier was because he still had to remain in this place, and if she were to be killed because of him, then he would most likely be forced to leave this place. However, at this point, the two of them were very far away from each other, so it was impossible for him to save her. All he could do was stop cold in his tracks, then turn back around to fly toward Nuo Yifan as quickly as possible. Nuo Yifan's complexion had turned deathly pale as she sensed the rapidly approaching sand beast, and she hurriedly flipped a hand over to produce a white jade talisman, which she then instantly crushed. A dull thump rang out as the ball of white spiritual light flew out of the jade talisman before vanishing into her body. She immediately began to glow with radiant white light, and a pair of crane wings that were several dozen feet in size appeared on her back, instantly enhancing her speed by several-fold. Even so, she was still slower than the sand beast, and the distance between the two was still constantly shrinking. As the gap between them was whittled down to less than 100 kilometers, the sand beast opened its mouth to release a burst of yellow light that resembled a rope, and it swept directly toward Nuo Yifan. Right at this moment, a thick bolt of silver lightning came crashing down upon the top of the sand beast's head. A huge ball of silver lightning then emerged, enveloping the sand beast's head within it, and it was sending arcs of silver lightning flying in all directions. Immediately thereafter, the scar-faced man from the Calm Dawn tribe appeared beside Nuo Yifan amid a flash of silver lightning. "Elder Khatun!" Nuo Yifan was ecstatic to see him. "We have to get away from here, young mistress." The scar-faced man slung one arm around Nuo Yifan's waist while holding a silver lightning hammer in his other hand. There was a silver lightning mark engraved onto the head of the hammer, giving off bursts of lightning law power fluctuations, and it was releasing arcs of silver lightning that enveloped both of them. However, right as they were about to make their escape, a ball of yellow light shot out of the ball of silver lightning behind them, then pierced straight through the scar-faced man's body at an incredible speed. The ball of silver lightning rippled momentarily before quickly fading to reveal the giant sand beast, which was completely unscathed, aside the fact that its head had been slightly charred black. The ball of yellow light had been shot straight out of the sand beast's glabella, and the scar-faced man's expression stiffened as he looked down at the ball of yellow light embedded into his chest, which then abruptly exploded. The scar-faced man's body also exploded into countless pieces that fell out of the sky, but at the same time, the silver lightning hammer in his hand shot forth directly toward the sand beast with a tiny nascent soul just barely visible within it. The lightning hammer reached the sand beast in a flash, then exploded violently into a giant ball of silver light that was giving off tremendous energy fluctuations, causing the nearby space to tremble and quiver while gusts of fierce wind were sent sweeping in all directions. The giant sand beast was completely inundated by the silver light, but its roar of alarm and fury could still be heard. Nuo Yifan was sent flying far into the distance by the ferocious gusts of wind, and tears began to well up in her eyes as she turned to look at the ball of silver light. But in the next instant, a determined look appeared on her face as she sped away as a streak of white light. A few seconds later, the sand beast flew out of the ball of silver light with its entire body riddled with injuries. In particular, its head had become entirely charred black, and it let loose a thunderous roar of fury before suddenly descending out of the sky. A layer of yellow light emerged over its body as it burrowed into the ground like a fish plunging into water, then quickly re-emerged elsewhere, at which point all of its injuries had disappeared, but its aura had become a little weaker. Immediately thereafter, it continued to pursue Nuo Yifan as a yellow shadow. Meanwhile, Han Li emerged amid a flash of golden lightning and a stunned look appeared in his eyes upon witnessing the sand beast's incredible regenerative powers. He then quickly made a hand seal and vanished from the spot amid another flash of golden lightning. At the entrance of the Dark Star Canyon, Nuo Qinglin turned around and descended onto the fortress behind him. There were already 2 gray-robed Grand Elders waiting for him there, and as soon as he descended onto the fortress, the pair of Grand Elders instantly declared, "The preparations are complete, Chief Nuo." Nuo Qinglin nodded in response with a solemn expression, then swept a sleeve through the air, and a loose-fitting purple robe with beautiful embroidered golden stars appeared over his body. The 3 of them quickly made their way onto a spacious altar at the center of the fortress, then formed a triangular formation with another, following which each of them produced a wooden staff, which they tapped down onto the strange patterns on the ground. The 2 Grand Elders remained silent, while Nuo Qinglin began to chant an incantation in the true spirit language to complement the tapping of their staves. Moments later, he raised his staff before ramming its tip heavily down onto the ground, and the staff instantly pierced through the stone material of the altar. The 2 Grand Elders did the same thing, immediately following, which Nuo Qinglin raised an arm before swiping a finger across the palm of his hand, instantly inflicting a gash that was deep enough to reveal bone. Glowing purple blood flowed out of the gash before dripping down onto the ground, but instead of splattering in all directions, the blood stayed together to form a tiny dark purple snake that began to extend forward. Before long, the tiny snake had filled the entire array on the altar, and Nuo Qinglin's complexion had paled significantly as he gritted his teeth and rammed the bottom of his staff into the ground once again. A faint buzzing sound rang out as a burst of radiant purple light erupted out of the entire altar, and a complex purple array projection emerged, within which were countless tiny specks of light that were dancing around like fireflies before converging to form a giant shadow the size of a small mountain.